Okay, if I could have your attention, please. Joining us right now is head coach Joe Gibbs, owner of Joe Gibbs Racing. And Coach, certainly our thoughts and prayers are with Kyle and the family, and certainly everybody over at JGR. And I want you to know how the communities, NASCAR communities, rallying behind y'all. And obviously, we'd like to get an update from you if we could.
Yeah, I'd love to. First of all, I want to say what really impresses you at a time like this is the NASCAR family. And last night, you know, our drivers are intense competition. All the race teams are intense in competition. Yet when something like this happens, last night it was just an outpouring of spirit, prayers. We had drivers coming by last night while we were at the hospital. We had NASCAR officials, everybody coming by. And certainly I think that's one of the most impressive things about our sport, and the way we adjust to things and the way we rally behind people, particularly when you have a situation like we had last night with Kyle. I'd like to address a couple of things with him. I think I talked to him before surgery, and then we waited until after surgery. Kyle, be quite truthful, was kind of lighthearted, joking around with me, talking about wanting to get back in the car right away before surgery. Afterwards, the doctors came in, and Sam stayed there and with Kyle last night. And for us, I waited there to get a report from the doctor. He said everything went very well. And so they took the major portion of what they did yesterday was his lower right leg, where the injury was. They took care of that. They're going to wait on his foot, his left foot, and it remains to be seen kind of there what the situation is, but that'll probably be taken care of. They said there's not a rush on that, and that we would probably be dealing with that in Charlotte with Dr. Anderson. So I felt like, considering everything that happened last night, I felt like that everybody banded together, certainly, and we appreciate all the prayers. And I would like to say this, you know, we've been in racing for all the Gibbs family, and JD and Coy and everybody. We've been in racing 24 years. And this, up until this point, we've had one driver miss 4 weeks. And so I think that says a lot about the safety of the sport. And I think yesterday in that wreck, the great thing was that Kyle had nothing from the knees up. Everything was fine. I think NASCAR does a great job of adjusting to things like this and making decisions. And I think this will be the same in this case. I know that the racetrack had a press conference yesterday and made some statements about that. And I think this is probably one that, again, will make some good decisions based on that. NASCAR certainly knows that the most important asset we have is our drivers. And I really applaud the fact that we have had some of the wrecks and everything that we have in our sport, and yet the safety factor has really been outstanding. And I think some of the improvements and everything we've made. And I think this will be a learning experience for everybody, and I'm sure that the tracks will be a part of that, like I said, and we'll probably learn from this, and it probably reached a point where with everything to do with the walls and everything, we'll probably have those protected. I know that there's been some decisions made today on that too. So I appreciate all that and the way NASCAR handles anything like this. They took our helmet last night. They took the Hans device, and they take all those things when we have a wreck like this and do an in-depth study of it. So we appreciate that.
We'll take a handful of questions for Coach. We'll start with Jenna, and then we'll go to Bob Pockers and then Jim Peltz. Go ahead.
Jenna Fryer, Associated Press. Joe, how long have they given you any idea on what sort of recovery Kyle's looking at? And I know that this has just happened last night, but have you guys put any thought toward what you'll do with the 18 while he's out?
Yeah, we haven't put thought into other than just today. We were thrilled to get Matt. I should have brought up the fact that Matt has, like I said, driven some of Kyle's stuff. He's a veteran guy. We felt like it was a perfect fit. We sent him over to the race shop last night. He met our person in charge of seats, and they sat in all of our cars, and he's real comfortable with Kyle's seat. Got down here, we brought him down last night, and he climbed in the car today, and he told me, he said, hey, everything's perfect. So we appreciate Matt. As far as time or length, I haven't really, I don't think I have a good understanding of that with the doctors and everything. I think we're just going to pray for him to bounce back. I can tell you this, Kyle's already telling Sam, he said, hey, I just want to get back to racing. So he has a great spirit about things like that.
Let's go to Bob and then Jim Peltz. Go ahead, Bob.
Bob Hockris, ESPN. Do you have any sense from NASCAR how many races Kyle could miss before he would be ineligible to qualify for the chase?
I really hadn't got into that other than I had a brief conversation last night about it, and I'm not even sure that I'm clarified on all the rules and what would take place. I think our focus, we had so much going on last night, was just to get everything arranged as best we could for today. So I'm sure that there'll be some conversations on that going forward.
Jim Peltz, and then over here to Claire B. Lang.
Jim Peltz of the LA Times. Coach, despite your safety record, does this accident give you any pause about Kyle running so many Xfinity races when now we have a situation where he's missing a lot of Cup races?
Yeah, I think what happens on that, I've dealt with it with the different drivers and everything, and so if you take Kyle's situation, let's think about it for a minute. He has his own race team, trucks, loves that, wants to race it. It's a big part of him and Sam and his future. So you kind of think about that, and you know that he's going to be racing some trucks. Now, this year he cut down his schedule quite a bit there. And then, obviously, I think in Kyle's life, he has Sam and he has racing. He loves it. He gets, matter of fact, at one point there in his career, we did cut back quite a bit, and it was one of the tougher years he had, and he comes back to you. So I think those conversations are obviously ones that you have. But I felt like in his case, he just loves it so much, and felt like it was something that really makes him happy, keeps him excited about life. And so I guess you always wrestle with that. But I think that's a little bit of my feelings about our past history with him. And, racing's his life. And like I said, other than Sam, and that's what he wants to do.
Over to the far right, Coach. Claire?
Claire B. Lang, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio. Coach, do you get involved in knowing what parts of the tracks are protected by safer barriers? Do you pay attention to that? Would you even know? Some of the drivers don't. And then with Kyle, the sponsorship side of it, did you have to call the sponsor and tell them? And how did that go over? Because that may last for a while, too, being out of the car.
Yeah, the thing about that, Mars has been in the sport for 27 years, have a great relationship. They're awesome, everybody. When I talked to everybody and everybody that was here, all on board, everybody was there last night. We had Mars people at the hospital, and it's just it is a close-knit family, and they certainly are a big part of our family, and they've been a big part of NASCAR's family. And so, no, I don't deal with the tracks or anything like that, so I haven't had any discussions along those lines. We leave that up to NASCAR.
Let's go to Dustin Long. Raise your hand, Dustin. Then we'll go to Viv. Dustin?
Dustin Long, NBC Sports. Joe, a couple things. When is Kyle expected to be released from the hospital and transported to Charlotte? And what kind of sense, I know you kind of talked about the foot, that they'll look at that a little bit later, but what kind of sense of additional surgeries might he be looking at with the leg and the foot down the road?
Yeah, as far as medically, I'm obviously not the medical person, but according to the doctor last night, his leg, lower part of his leg is all taken care of. And I think we'll have Dr. Anderson and that group look at the foot because they didn't feel like that was something that would be dealt with right now. So the main emphasis was on his leg. As far as going back to Charlotte, we're on standby with the plane. And so whenever he feels like he can travel, we'll get him back to Charlotte.
Let's go to Viv and then Tom Jensen. Go ahead, Viv.
Viv Bernstein, New York Times. Given Denny's and Kyle's injuries, is it a lot of drivers have already come forth and said it's time to cover every single wall where they can hit with safer barriers? Are owners going to make that call as well? Are you going to call for all walls to be covered?
I think for me, it's kind of the way I stated it. We all work together, and I think NASCAR does a great job of evaluating things. I think our safety of our cars is evident when you race cars. And so I think they do a great job of that. The comments I made were, pretty much what I think. And, I think this is, obviously the NASCAR realizes our most important thing that we deal with is our drivers. And it's a safety issue. And I think we've made great progress in the past. Like I said, to have that kind of a wreck yesterday and have him, from the knees up, being in great shape, I felt great about that because I think we all have concerns of any kind of injury to our drivers.
Let's go far left with Tom, then we'll work our way back over here to Marty and maybe try to take one more. Go ahead.
Hi, Coach. Tom Jensen, Fox Sports, to your left.
Yeah.
When do you expect you'll know how long Kyle will be out? And for the duration he's out, what's the most important thing for your team to do and your crew to do to take care of the car and your sponsors and so forth?
Right. Always a concern for you, but I think what will happen there is the doctors, after they have a chance to look at his foot and everything, and we get that all squared away, I think they will give us a good opinion. Dr. Anderson deals with almost, I can't tell you how many, whether it's football or racing or anything, so I think he'll give us a good opinion of that. And the second question was?
What's your goals and what do you try to do?
Oh, yeah, as far as sponsor goes. Awesome. In conversations all last night, our Mars representatives were there at the hospital waiting all the way to the bitter end there with listening to the doctor and everything. We're just going to make the best decision we can. We felt like today was perfect with us. You say perfect, considering the situation we were in. To be able to get Matt down here last night was a big deal for us, and to have him in the car, he and Kyle get along great, and Kyle was, saying get him in here. And then I think we'll, today's been our whole focus, so we'll talk more about, how long he's going to be out, try and get an evaluation of that, and then we'll talk about, starting tomorrow, we'll talk about what's our best decision for everybody on going forward. Well, I know our emphasis is getting back as quick as we can. I know that's what Kyle will be wanting to do, and we'll have everybody working with him and for him and rehab and everything else to get him back as quick as we can in the car.
We're here to Marty Smith and finish up with Bruce. Then we need to let Coach go.
Coach, good morning. What about the human side of this for you?
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's like a son almost to you. So what's it like for you to watch that wreck unfold and then go to the hospital and see him?
Well, I think what happens when you get in a relationship over a period of time, which we've been with our drivers, and you develop a close relationship with him and Sam, and there is a personal side of that. You, my whole life has been involved in sports, and people ask me about my children, playing sports, and I always said that, that's part of life for a lot of people, and if they weren't playing sports in high school, they were probably riding around in cars, and that's not safe either. So I think you just look at that. I think from a personal standpoint, just really care for Kyle, his whole family, mother and dad, and so I think you are a lot like family. I look at it that way. I told him last night, to be truthful, I told him before surgery that, hey, I love you. And that's the way we feel about it.
Final question, Bruce.
Bruce Martin, Race Day on Fox Sports Radio and National Speed Sport News. Moving forward, candidates in the interim role, and also you've dealt with a lot of serious injury as a football coach. How would you compare this injury to some of the ones that you had when in the NFL?
Yeah, I think any injury, particularly, one that would, affect your life and take you away from what you love to do for a period of time. I know we're going to just do everything we can to get Kyle back. And as far as the future, we'll probably start thinking about that tomorrow, get a better evaluation from the doctors and what they think on time, and then we'll be talking about, what we can do there going forward, which would be best for everyone concerned.
Coach, thank you for coming in, and all the best.
Thank y'all. I appreciate the prayers, really, the prayers and all of you. We care so much for our people and our family and the people you're so close to. And I think in sports you go through so many things that are the highs and the lows. And certainly right now this is a low. We appreciate everybody's prayers and going forward for the family. And thank you for the way you guys always rally and look. You're a big part of our sport, you guys. So thank you.
Morning, everyone. Pleased to welcome Kevin Harvick, driver of the number 4 Budweiser Chevrolet, Jimmy John's Chevrolet. As you know, he starts 11th in today's Daytona 500. He is familiar with this stunning statue to his right, which he won in 2007. And as you know, Kevin is the 2014 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series champion. So we figured we'd kick off today at the Daytona 500 talking to the defending champion who's got a lot to look forward to this year. And certainly I'd like you to kind of start a bit with a summary of your off season and how you feel going into today's great race.
Well, I'm excited that the day is finally here. It seems like you put in a lot of time out of the race car, and a lot of things going on with the new year and the sponsorships and production days, and it's been a busy off season trying to get our offices and everything moved to Charlotte. So just excited to be here, and heck, I race a car for a living, so things could be a lot worse. So looking forward to having the opportunity to hopefully try and put our name on that trophy again at the end of the day.
All right, we'll take questions for Kevin now. We'll start with Dean right there, then we'll go to Bob, and then over to Viv.
Dean McNulty, Toronto Sun. In 2007, Kevin, you led only 4 laps, and you passed Mark Martin on the final lap to win the race. How is this race different from all the other races that happens so much?
Well, there's a lot of things that usually happen during speed weeks, and I think as you get into the race today, this is very typical. You go through a whole week, and then you show up on Sunday, and the weather's 30 degrees hotter than it has been at any point that we've practiced in, or it's colder, or there's some kind of scenario or something going on, or a rules change, or there's always something to manage. But I think when you look at that year, we'd actually had some trouble there towards the end of the race, and everything just has to line up for you. The first thing you have to do is finish, so you have to have luck on your side today. If it's your day, it's your day, and if it's not, it's you're going to wind up on a tow truck. So we've been on both sides of that. This is just kind of its own beast. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of work, a lot of effort that goes into this one particular race to lead off the season, and everybody's had all winter to prepare for it. So you have to try to control your emotions at the beginning of this race, because you're more amped up for this race than you are for probably any race you're going to go to all year, and just try to minimize the mistakes, because it's a lot of first. The guys have jumped over the wall, but they've really only jumped over the wall one time, and there's not been all the cars on pit road and all the cars together on the racetrack, so you don't really know what you have with your race car until you drop the green flag and all 43 cars are out there together. So a lot of unknowns still as we go into the day with a complete drastic set of circumstances weather-wise that are much different than we've practiced or raced in all week.
All right, we'll go to Bob, and then over to Viv, and then to Jenna.
Bob Hawker, ESPN. You've been vocal about the lack of safer barriers. You were in the TV booth yesterday. What What was your your first reaction when you saw Kyle's car go into an area with no safer barrier, and then the reaction after Joey Chitwood's announcement last night?
Well, I think that's just it. I think it's a reaction from the racetrack, unfortunately. You know, I hit the same wall a little further up last year at this particular race and kind of voiced my opinion, and unfortunately I was just a dot on the chart, and there was no reaction. Now there's a reaction from the racetrack. So hopefully this is a lesson learned. You don't want to have a reaction. The racetracks have to be proactive, and they have to look ahead of an accident that did happen. They have to look ahead and look for accidents that might happen. And you know, there's been great improvement. We know what fixes these walls, and that's to put a wall in front of them. And yesterday was, you know, that's why we wear a helmet. That's why we wear Hans. That's why we wear fire suits. That's why we have fire bottles. It's for that one moment that you have to protect yourself against. 98% of the time, 99% of the time, things are going to be fine. So help us by, you know, trying to prevent that one situation. Now you know, just like we did with Dale Earnhardt. You have Kyle Busch, you know, one of our sport's biggest stars, who's out and not being able to race because of, you know, the lack of attention that it takes to the safety on these super speedways. And instead of being proactive, you know, the track was reactive.
We'll go to Viv, and then to Jenna, and then over to Dave Kalman.
Viv Bernstein, New York Times. I think Bob sort of asked the question I wanted to ask. I guess following up on that, just heading into this race, you know, there's a typical exuberance to the start of the season. Is that muted at all given what happened yesterday?
Well, you feel bad for the sport in general, the fans. You know, Kyle himself more than anything. I mean, Kyle's a big part of this sport, and you know, carries a lot of weight and has a lot of fans and a big part of the show. And now he's not in the race today, and that's a big hit for everybody in this race today. So it's you know, it's unfortunate, and I hope we all take something from this and learn just as we did. And unfortunately, it's not a situation of the magnitude of Earnhardt's, but it's still, you know, it's a wake up call in my opinion to make sure that we do things right.
Jenna Fryer, Associated Press. My question's a little bit like Viv's. It's been a pretty weird week, a lot of different storylines, and then it culminates with Kyle's incident last night. You guys as drivers are accustomed to this and you tune it out, but is there any sense, because of the inherent danger and dislike of super speedway racing, that there might be a little trepidation when guys are putting their helmets on and getting in their cars today?
You know, this sport is still, you know, a tremendous amount safer than it was 15 years ago, 12 years ago. I mean, this is a you know, very safe sport, and unfortunately yesterday we had that one situation where all the stars lined up and things happened. We're going to tear up some race cars today just because of that's just how you race here, and 9 times out of 10 the cars aren't making the mistakes, it's the drivers. So you know, you're going to have to be aggressive. I don't see that changing, you know, with what's on the line today to win the Daytona 500. Everybody's going to push and shove and do what they have to do to try to put themselves in position to win.
Okay, we'll go to Dave and then to Lewis.
Dave Coleman, Milwaukee Journal Sentinel. I don't know if you were in when Coach Gibbs was talking about how sort of the family pulls together, the broader racing family. Kyle's a guy who a lot of people have had trouble with at one time or another, but when somebody has something like this, you know, does that change? If you haven't had a good relationship with somebody, does this change how you look at people?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. You know, whether you like or dislike somebody on the racetrack does not ever interfere with the fact of doing what's right in a situation. You know, he's got a wife and parents and people around him that love him, and you know, that's you want to do whatever you can do to try to help. I'm sure that they have everything under control and trying to do the best that they can in the situation, but that's not how this garage is. This garage is open arms with, you know, no matter who it is in any situation. Everybody wants to make sure that your family is in as good a shape as possible and do anything you can to help in any way that you can. So it's what happens on the racetrack is never anything that's personal. You can't. It's so hard to maintain what you do as a driver and as a person yourself with your own job, that you have to do everything you can. Everybody does everything they can outside to help each other, and you know, sure, you might not be best friends or something like that, but you don't ever want to see people hurt.
Okay, we'll go over to Lewis, and then over to Angela Davis, and then down here to Craig Neff.
Louis Frank of Reuters. Based off of qualifying and the twins, many people have been writing, maybe me too, that the Hendrick cars and the JGR cars are the favorites. What makes you the favorite today?
I think we've done a good job of managing the week. You know, I think obviously you know, the Hendrick engines are running very well. They have a great Speedway program at Hendrick Motorsports, and we're glad to, you know, have a piece of that at Stewart-Haas Racing. So I feel like you know, we've managed our week well, and we have what we feel is our best car, you know, to race in the 500, and that was really the main goal. But you know, those guys have produced the results this week, so that they should be the favorites.
All right. We question from Angela, and then down here to Craig.
Hi, Angela Davis, Jersey Girl Sports. We know that with any sport, it is as much mental as it is physical. Are there any race day rituals or things that you do to prepare?
You know, I pretty much have developed a routine that I'm comfortable with as far as when I eat, what I eat. We do our hospitalities and appearances at the same time pretty much every weekend. And, you know, I think for me, it's I probably get a little bit quieter. My hearing becomes a little bit impaired on the weekends, you know, as far as what I hear from people around me. So it's, you know, I just kind of go into my own little zone to try to concentrate on what I'm getting ready to do. So this is, you know, this is our biggest race of the year. So you got to be ready to go when the green flag drops.
Okay, we'll go down here to Craig, and then we'll go to the far back in the black hat.
Mike Neff from frontstretch.com. Kevin, as a driver, you know that not only success, but just your career in this sport can be fleeting, and any turn of the wheel could be the last one you take, from an injury ending your career to even worse. But when something like this happens, does it cause you to step back and kind of reevaluate your personal planning and your preparations for life after the sport?
Well, I think not right now. You know, I think as a driver, you know, I woke up this morning, you know, trying to make sure that I was prepared for the, you know, for what I needed to do today. I think, you know, I think our guys do a great job inside the race car. NASCAR does a great job in making sure that the seats and the chassis and everything and the inspection process of these cars that NASCAR goes through is a big reason why Kyle's injuries aren't worse than they were yesterday, driving straight on into a wall. So NASCAR has done a great job in making continuous and, you know, advancements in the safety of the cars, and we feel like we've stayed up with everything that's been made available to us through the safety team at NASCAR. So you know, this is an unfortunate situation with Kyle, but it could have been a ton worse if NASCAR wasn't ahead of the game and doing what we've done with these cars and taking bold steps with what was the car tomorrow is now the Gen 6 car. And, you know, with the seats and everything that go with it. So it's advanced a lot.
All right, go back there, down here, and then we'll finish up with Tom Jensen.
Hey, Kevin. Doug Turnbull from WSB Radio in Atlanta. And with all these questions about Daytona, I wanted to ask you about Atlanta next week. There's so much buzz around this, and suddenly you hear everybody say it's like a snap back to reality as you start racing 1.5 miles and more normal racetracks again. What does Atlanta mean to you, and what's it like for wherever that second race is? Kind of the difference in Daytona and then the stark reality the next week.
Well, right now this is it. You know, I've never been a guy to think too far ahead. It's one goal at a time, and right now it's the Daytona 500. So I'll get back to you on Monday on Atlanta.
Dwight Drum, racetake.com over here, Kevin.
Yep.
Here you go. You're carrying, like NASCAR, you're carrying a lot of momentum into the season. Is there a point in the off season or maybe during speed weeks where the momentum stops and the next goal takes over?
Well, I think when we pulled in the gate here, everybody knew that we were faced with a new task, I guess you could say, and that was to try to defend a championship, and how to do that, and what we needed to do. We don't really know. You don't ever know what's ahead of you as far as the year and the things that you're going to have to react to. Every year is going to be different. Every situation is going to be different. But the thing I do know is I have a lot of confidence in my team. I know the team has a lot of confidence in me and the organization and everything that we did last year. We had a lot of pretty extreme circumstances that the organization dealt with Tony's situation. We have had built a new team and built a whole new team with new people that came on board. So as that year went, the confidence just kept getting greater and greater, and now you can do it. You know that your team can react to situations. You know that your guys on your team are going to have each other's backs. You're going to have their back, and it's just a great feeling to be a part of a team and have everybody pulling in the same direction and supporting each other. And I've said this before, but I hope everybody gets to experience it like all the guys on our team have and myself, because it's a pretty special feeling to be able to have that many people doing and wanting to accomplish the same things together, and that's rare.
Tom?
Hi, Kevin. Tom Jensen, FoxSports.com. Going to go a little bit different direction. Usually on social media, people are really critical of everything. You got raves yesterday for your performance on doing the TV thing. Did you have fun doing that? Do you want to do more of that in the future?
Yeah, well, I enjoyed it a lot more than I thought I would. Actually, it was it was kind of a new challenge, and for me, I felt like you kind of bring that perspective to the booth of right off the racetrack and being able to really relate to what's going on the racetrack with being able to keep it elementary enough to relate to the race fans so that you can keep it simple and understand. So it's something that I definitely enjoyed and had a lot of fun doing. I think my next one is Las Vegas during the Xfinity race and Dover after that. So I have a chance to do a few of those this year, but still parking in that garage and the competitive spirit is what drives it. But that's what relates to that booth up there and really being able to send the message out to really give a real understanding of what's going on the track to the fans.
All right, before we wrap up our defending champion news conference, we have a couple of guests who'd like to take a photo with our champion. And